So minutes to approve for May.
Okay.
Oh, wait, sorry. Let's do the pledge. Let's
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now, minutes to approve for May.
I'll move it.
Tina, can I have a second? Not all at once.
Second.
Second, Bazil. Anybody opposed, anything, or want to add anything? No, if not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, no appointments, so we'll go right to the city court renovation expansion discussion. Okay. Gary?
Andy? Christina Selvig's here from the city, and I think some other people from the city as well. Answer any questions you may have about the city court, and what their plans are for the historic post office. But basically, over the last month or a couple months ago, they were in and did a presentation. What they'd like to do is expand into the WIC area of the historic post office. Right now, they've actually done an RFP to get bids for architect to do the design work. They're going to pay for that out of the city's coffers. But what they're looking for from the county is a commitment that once they pay for that, that we'll be willing to finance and support the effort going forward to actually make the renovations needed so they can take over that space. They're here to answer any questions. I know the county attorney's office is working on this. Fred Westfall specifically is working on it with the city attorneys also. I'm not sure where that stands.
I can give a brief recap that I spoke with Fred about it. He did send out a proposed lease agreement to Nate Garland. He did return it back with comments, but unfortunately, because of our staff's overload on the DSS side of it, he has not had a chance to review it. And so he said that he will be in contact with Nate shortly on that agreement. And then once I proposed, I'll put a resolution in through for July. He's hoping to put it through for Public Works regarding that lease agreement.
Okay. So basically, you guys haven't reviewed the questions that were sent back.
Correct. Fred has not been able to have a chance with trials.
All right. So, Christine, I don't know if you want to comment on it at all. I know really what I ideally want is a commitment now because you're going to want to award the agreement with the architect at some point soon. Can you talk a little bit about your schedule?
Sure. Yep. So where the city's at since January, for those of you that don't know me, Christina Selvig, I'm the Director of Capital Projects and Grants for the City of Auburn. Thank you for having us here tonight for your Public Works Committee meeting. So myself and Nate came before the ledge actually in January, presented the fact that the city is required by OCA at this point to provide a second court space for our city courts and our judges there. And the spaces have definitely needed some renovation over the last 30 years. So now that WIC has vacated the space across the hallway, as Gary had so nicely said, the city wishes to utilize that space. It's about 2,500 square feet. It's definitely a space that could be reused. The city then would pay lease on that space back to the county. So we definitely appreciate the partnership that you've lent us over these years. So knowing that that was received by the ledge back in January, the city then released a request for a proposal to acquire A&E services for design, construction administration, and inspection. So that was released last month. We did receive 4 proposals. We have 2 that we're going to be interviewing next week. So pricing wise, because that's still out for competitive review, I don't want to speak too much to that. But we probably are looking in and around $200,000 for design and inspection. Ideally, if you're estimating 20% of your project costs for design CACI, we're probably looking somewhere around $800,000 for court renovation that then the city would work with the county to pay back probably over a 10-year period for those costs. So that's where we're at. We're hoping to have someone on board in July, ideally for A&E services, go out for bid, hopefully before the holidays. So we would definitely need a capital H account set up prior to that.
So I've got a question. Are you, the way Gary made it sound, are you looking for the county to pay for this and then you're paying the county back?
That's correct. Yes.
So you're paying the county back plus whatever we would have to charge for leasing?
Yes. So we would cover the construction costs.
I'm just curious, why can't the city borrow or however?
Cannot borrow money for a project for a building that the city does not own.
Okay, that's what I wanted.
Christine, just so everybody knows, that is payback with interest, right?
The terms,
Depends.
Chair, the
Yeah.
terms haven't quite been negotiated.
Okay.
Mr. Westfall and I are going to endeavor to make a fair bargain, but honestly, interest has not entered the conversation yet.
Okay, that'll be up to you two. All right, thanks.
Anybody have anything more you want to say? Either of you two?
Tim does.
Well,
I know.
I'll just make one comment. To me, it's a win-win situation because that is the most expensive building per square foot that we operate as a county. And to have the courts occupy as much of that as possible is our best interest as taxpayers and as people who represent the taxpayers, in my view. If the city court, for example, decided they couldn't live with the space that they have and we weren't going to give them additional space and they decided to go somewhere else, we'd have to find somebody to occupy that space that would be willing to pay what they're paying or more. So I think it's in our best interest to really pursue this with the city in a mutually beneficial manner. That's my opinion.
Jim?
Yeah, so I don't disagree with Gary on that. Having unoccupied space would be a challenge. Without knowing what the questions were, would it be too overwhelming to get those reviewed and back before the full ledge meeting on the 27th?
I can speak with Fred and I believe his goal was within the next, I'd say like a week or two. At least I'd give him that. A lot going on that he hasn't had a chance to review and get back to me, but I knew they're going to be in talks soon.
I'd like to see us continue that partnership. And
If this is something you're saying you need us to go along with, you're talking before, like Brittany just said, the July, you don't want to wait another month.
So the city can approve the RFP for design services independent of the county. It would be nice to know before I do that meeting with the city council on hopefully the July 6th meeting, that the county public works would agree, at least an idea that this is a good use of the space. The city can move ahead with design services. We would then, I'd like to come to your meetings during the summer months to keep you apprised of how design and cost estimating is going. That way we are fully prepared in the fall to go to Ways and Means and then the ledge for capital H.
So is there any way, Chris, we can get this before Ways and Means next time?
Our best. I mean, I know we've got just
I know.
numerous trials coming up. I've got sport court all day tomorrow, trial on Thursday. I know Fred's in trial tomorrow. Yeah, I did. We'll do our best.
If not Ways, the full ledge at least, so that we can,
And I'll speak with Fred about
because
it.
we need to know terms and length and stuff, because I mean, we don't want to go through all this and then,
Can I ask a question just because I wasn't listening?
yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what we're having difficulty doing, Andy, is actually writing a resolution to bring to a meeting because we need the cost estimates. So I don't know what we would write to have it Ways and Means. We can't create the capital H without knowing the cost.
Right, which
Of the
wouldn't be
project.
till next fall, right? Wouldn't-
Right, so that's what I'm saying. I don't think there is something to bring to Ways and Means this month. We're actually looking for, I guess, like some type of just straw poll, head nod, support of the project. The anticipation is that the agreement will be written, that they will be covering all the costs to do the renovation. That will be in the lease agreement to pay us terms yet to be determined over 10 years, over 15 years, over whatever it is that we are gonna end up doing, but they're gonna end up hiring this architect.
That was my question.
Yes, the city is
City's
gonna pay
gonna
for the
take-
architecture and engineering right now, but they obviously don't wanna waste their money on a project that never happened, so.
Well, see, I'm not opposed to this project, but I'm opposed to telling the taxpayers, yeah, we're gonna agree to something, but we don't know what the hell we're agreeing to. Because we don't have any numbers.
Well, I guess
Any
she's
term.
really not agreeing to it. We're not asking you to vote. There is no resolution. I guess she just wants to keep them all informed. You know, see if you had any questions at this point, you know, in the progress, if it seems reasonable what we're doing right now, because you aren't gonna vote on anything. We know that. Until we get costs, then we're gonna ask you to vote and really make a commitment or something.
Okay, so that's a little bit different than what I'm just hearing then. So like Andy said, we're in agreement of some kind of relationship to continue there. But without knowing what the details are in that agreement to cover the cost for the taxpayers, including the interest, because it would be money that we might have someplace else collecting interest on behalf of the taxpayers, both people that live in the city and throughout the county. Either one of those terms, but I think if you're looking for a kind of a straw poll.
And it will be presented, Jim. It's just the fact that they're still discussing the license agreement. And then before Dave can even sign, it would have to come before the ledge because you need authorization to sign. So it should be presented. It's just Fred has not had a chance to review the comments.
But if the city is looking for, I'm sorry, Andy, can I continue?
Yeah.
So if the city is just looking for a head nod on it, I don't know, I would be comfortable saying, yes, I'd like to see it continue pending what the resolution is on the financing and how that's going to be covered.
Dave,
Yeah, the seventh district is kind of insisted that the city do this. It's, I think it's been in the works for like 7 years now. And finally, the seventh district came out 2 or 3 months ago and said, you will do it, you have to do it. And so that's an order from seventh district court. So the court has to be done. I guess what I'm getting at is they need to kind of know that we're going to maybe agree to this so they can hire the architect for 200,000. I mean, you're not going to hire an architect if we're not going to give them the money because it's a county building. As Christine just said, they can't fork the money over because it's not their building. So I think they got to know, at least have a good idea that we will approve this eventually before they hire an architect for 200,000. Is that right, Christine?
Yes.
Thank you.
which I don't have a problem with that. I agree with that. It's just, I guess I struggle with not even knowing terms. Where are we gonna get the money from? Is it gonna come out of fund balance? Is it gonna come out of some other? Are we gonna borrow it? I mean, we don't even know what that total is. I don't know, we're agreeing to spend a lot more money than their 200,000 without knowing exactly how much, exactly where it's coming from, exactly what the terms are. I mean, I get it. I do, but it just irks me to no end that government doesn't run like business, because you would never run a business that way, because you'd be broke in a year. You know, I'm gonna spend money that I don't know what I'm spending it for, what the terms are. Jim, then Brian.
So the other question about that on the head nod, now that you mentioned that, Andy, is when will that happen? Because this is an election year and you could have different legislators here come January 1st. It's not going to be 15, it's going to be 11. So there's going to be a different makeup of the Cayuga County Legislature.
You're talking about the final vote, Jim? The approval, once the resolution comes, you're talking about?
Yeah,
Well, that's going to be way before January 1st, isn't it?
Yeah, Fred was projecting that for the license agreement that a resolution would come through next month.
Okay, I'm
Have it
just,
prepared for the next.
I heard him say it'll be a year before they get.
So,
Brian.
right, we're gonna hire the architect next month, the city will. We have to obviously do scoping, design, work through Gary and this committee to present the plans. Ideally, I really would like to come back to the committee as well and get your blessing to work through then Ways and Means, and we should have engineer estimates. I mean, it's a pretty straightforward, simple renovation project. It should not, it should not take us, years for design. So we'll be back.
Brian first.
I just want to, I would like to give the city the ability to proceed, because in this situation, Mr. Duggan says that we don't have any alternative on the other tenants. So hearing what you just said a minute ago, you said that you want to run like normal business. Well, normal business would mean that they would be seeking other locations with less build out, less that and have several different choices. They're basically looking at one particular area and putting all their eggs in one basket. So we just want to, what I think we're doing is doing a verbal okay. Because if the city chooses to move to another location, not only is it a burden on all taxpayers, there's not a tenant I could see that would be utilized on that space.
Well, we just give them the building then.
But that's not on the table today. So those comments are not progressive because they're not on the table. But if you were to give them the building, I think now you open up a whole can of worms of, are you gonna be stuck with the building? Because they're gonna look at other alternatives as well. So I just say, I think this is like a.
So if they move
It's a
out, we're
kind-
stuck with the building now.
Well,
After
I
renovation.
don't think that the city of Auburn is gonna leave the county.
So then let's
Right.
give it to them.
Well,
Then it's off of our. I'm just saying.
An alternative.
it's an alternative, but why are we talking about something it ain't happening? We're not talking about that today. Right, so every one of you guys are legislators, so you can make that happen, or you can have the discussions, but right now we're discussing 2,500 square feet. So, I mean, if you feel that strongly, I'd get a committee together and examine that. And then see if the city wants to do that. But right now, I don't see why I just don't move with the 25. What are we talking about here? I mean, what information you want? You want a complete, but you want everything laid out right now, and then have them shop around and see where they can find. I don't know what the.
Well, we don't know what the final numbers are.
What the
We don't know
final
what the
numbers.
terms are. We don't know what anything is.
The final numbers is what
I'm not opposed to this, but I don't want to say yes to something that I have nothing in
How
front
can
of me
they get the
knowing.
final numbers if we're not even willing to have the friendly saying proceed, will give us the final numbers? I think that's what they're looking for. If this is not even on the table, then I think in this case, they would just move on to a different area. But they're trying to find out if this is even on the table, so they can proceed and get the architects involved, so we can have a final number. That's,
I got a two-part question and I'm gonna ask them both at the same time. Number one, you're saying that it's estimated at 800,000. That's on current
That's on current square footage.
and current cost of, okay. And
Did like
then
400 square
the
feet.
second part of my question would actually be directed to Lynn. Lynn, where do you have any idea where we get this money from?
I mean, the fund balance, we have a lot of cash, so we would not need to borrow. And like we said, then they will pay it back in the lease agreement over time. So we were gonna have operating costs in the lease agreement, just like we have now. They rent space from us currently. We can put interest into it. So, I mean, this has been the understanding the whole time, is that we are gonna pay, but they're paying us back. So clearly, you're right. It's gonna be all in writing. It's gonna be an agreement. The attorneys will figure it out. We'll have to figure out a time period stuff, but that is the intention, that it really won't cost the county in the end. It is our building. Some renovations have to be done to it anyhow. Gary's already done some. We've given him some ARPA money. So some of the other work will get done. There also is county court in that building that we are required by law to provide the space for. So the city probably doesn't want to take a building, then we'd have to find it, so it gets complicated. That's not the only thing that's over there. Certainly, the county court takes up more space in that building than the city court. So, like I said, we're not asking you to vote on anything. We're not. I mean, because I totally understand where you're coming from, that you need to have more information to vote. But I guess we just want to keep you in the loop. They're moving forward. This is gonna happen. We don't want you to be shocked in a month or two when the resolution does show up to create a capital H. And we ask you to enter into a contract and, so if you have questions now, this is the time, maybe if you even have them after tonight, Christina can give more information on the project and things from there.
I just, in terms of straw poll, this direction has had my support from before I even ran for office. I remember this issue was coming up and you talked about solutions for this building and moving WIC and all of that stuff. So I commend you guys for keeping this on the radar and obviously this now. But I think it makes perfect sense to support the expansion in that existing building for a lot of reasons, including efficiency of government, believe it or not, with attorneys running back and forth between courts here, there. So I know there's a lot of details to work out, but I generally appreciate this project very much. I think it benefits us as a county as well to have a stable tenant in there that's going to utilize the space and reinvest in the property.
Anyone else?
And just one final comment from me. And Lynn said this, the county court is over there. Anybody that's been in the building knows that. County court takes up the whole upstairs. The third floor is made up of civil from the sheriff's department. We have board of elections in the basement. So it is a county building. We just can't, give it to them because they're paying rent for us now, to us. It would be, we wouldn't be able to move the other people. We would not get their rent that we get every year. So I'm in favor of this. I know it's not a vote tonight, but when it comes to voting, I'm certainly in favor of it. We have to trust each other and partners in this county. We have to trust the city. They have to trust us. If we say we will do this pending the final, amount, then the city can go ahead and not lose $200,000 to the architect. So I'm in full support of this.
What else?
Just very quickly, I thank Gary for the update and I trust your departmental expertise as well in terms of supporting going forward.
So, I'll just kind of summarize. I can't speak obviously for legislators, but what I heard, most of the people are supportive of this. But it will depend on the agreement that Fred and Attorney Sam are out. So, that he was here to see what the concerns of the legislators are. So we'll work with us the best we can do for you today. I think we're heading the right direction myself.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much. Thanks, guys.
All right. Yeah. Carl had no update. Let's see. Oh, he is here. You have anything that you sense you did this?
Some new to add to the written report.
Anybody have anything for Carl? Thank you. Kyle, you have anything you wanna?
That was Kyle.
That was Kyle.
Oh. We're looking for Carl. Carl's not here.
I don't see Carl.
Gary.
We have my report. There's just a few things that I'll bring up here. We already talked about item 1 under administration. That's the Arbor project. Just an update on the county office building project real quick. We provided, Shereen and I have been working back and forth with Bergman, and we provided them with a bunch of feedback on some draft information, and that'll be shared with everybody here pretty soon when they get back to us. Item 3, you have my buildings and grounds project list in the portal. Item 4, I do have a problem with ironically the HBO. The elevator project was projected to cost $225,000. At the time that I put that forward, the elevator itself was $205,000. Had to do some electrical work and some fire alarm work. Unfortunately, I found out from the fire alarm company that the fire alarm is so old that we can't update that to meet the current requirements for the elevator. So I'm going to have to upgrade basically the whole alarm system. I'll be coming to you with July with some more information on that. Perhaps assuming that it's going to be more than I'm going to be able to come up with out of my budget, but I will try to find money in my budget for that project. Beyond that, Item 5, just an update on the roofing projects. The public safety building roof is complete. Lighting rods are back on, looks really good. Hardboard roof is coming along nicely. Had a little bit of rain delay, obviously yesterday, but they'll be coming right along on that and hopefully be done in the next week and a half or so. One other thing that I just want to get on everybody's radar, electric car charging is coming. It's my understanding that motor pool is moving back to highway. We'll need to consider space for charging stations at that time. Just keep that in the back of your mind. I believe the state has mandated electric cars by 2030 or something crazy like that. So, we need to kind of look towards the future for that, because we'll need to have a place to charge our county vehicles. Beyond that, I'll answer any questions you may have.
Anybody got anything for Gary? Cheers.
Hey, Gary. I was just curious, with this county office building renovation, where are you guys at with decisions about space utilization for different departments?
Yeah, they've drafted some information on that topic. We'll have that probably coming back to us probably pretty soon. So we should have some ideas on that fairly quickly. I believe they're coming back with schematic plans first, or no, I'm sorry, conceptual plans first. They're, I think, the first week of July. So we should have those by the first week of July.
Okay. And does it consider services that are offered at other sites beyond the hub?
It considers all the people in the building now, and it also considers bringing an OFA back in here. I forget if there's anybody else moving back in.
No, the VA was, but they want to stay.
Yeah, they're going to stay where they are. Oh, I think that's so. But yeah, every department that we've included in our discussions is going to be included in their.
Is the VA the only one in that?
They're in the Hardenberg building. Yeah, that's where the district attorney's been.
You want to do your resolution?
Yep, I've got one resolution for you tonight. PW1 authorizes the chair of the Cayuga County Legislature to sign a second one-year extension to the agreement for cleaning of the two county buildings, courthouse and the historic post office.
Move it, Basile.
Second.
Largo.
Any discussion? Not all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Gary, you got anything else, Gary?
That's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I sent out my report. I don't have any resolutions. I know that's 20. Don't have any resolutions for this month. A couple things to point out. Obviously, we were able to fill a lot of our seasonal positions with the exception of course lifeguards. So we're all up and running with staffing. A lot of our program actually kicks off this weekend with the car show. We're working on a couple of projects. Construction projects and finishing up some improvements for the summer up at the Sterling Nature Center. The roof and walls are going on in the building, so the facility is up above the ground. Trades will start in the next couple of weeks, so it's good to see that project come along up there. And there's a lot of programming also going on at the museum as well as the Friends programming throughout the park throughout the summer.
I got anything for Doug?
What about the lifeguards, Doug? Are we just stuck in the water here? We're not going to have any, or?
Yeah, we've only had, I think, 2 qualified applicants, and by the time we got the second one, the first one already had another job. We offered to pay reimburse this year based on the number of hours worked for training. So next year we're going to do training on the front end of the season. So we're going to do a week of training as a part of the going into the season.
So we're actually going to give up this year then?
Yeah, I mean, unless we get, I can't open unless I have 3,
I understand.
really 5 guards. So
Wow. Okay.
can't open without them.
So do we have none right now?
Yeah, we don't have any current applicants because of the lag between the 2 that we had. One had already got a job and I can't open with one.
Don't have any like past ones to go back and
No.
say, hey, you interested in coming back?
No, although we've tried.
Doug, Jenny,
Gonna rotate county.
Contract.
What is the age limit on the lifeguard minimum somebody who's a lifeguard at or something?
16.
Is it 16?
Yeah. Generally speaking, our employees are 18 because in order to drive or use any equipment on the property, we prefer they were 18. They can't operate younger than 18. So.
Would you consider 16-year-olds?
Yeah, we did this year. You just can't drive vehicles. So we can't
Right,
drive.
right.
But generally speaking, when we're staffed, there are 3 at least staff on at a time. So usually we'd have somebody that's obviously old enough to.
Yeah, what about Casey Park Pool? Have they got lifeguards this year? Are they opening up, Doug, do you know?
I believe so, but the Y runs that, so they have some of their own staffing.
Is there any way that we can work together with the Y for these guards?
I mean, they usually don't, they're usually struggling to cover their own hours. That was
Okay.
what was happening last summer. too.
All right.
In a lot of the facilities too. A couple of the local state parks are actually rotating staff, I've heard, from one park to another, so they can only open specific parks at a time and are closing others just to rotate through to get some opening times in different facilities.
All right, thank you.
Lydia?
Great, thank you. Do we know of any folks who are interested in doing this and they just need the money, the investment?
Not that I've heard.
If you hear of anybody, would you let me know? I'd be happy to fund that.
Sure.
Would you like for me to talk to someone at the Y to find out if they're open to, I know that we talked to them last year, but this year's a different year. Maybe it's good, I know Melissa. Do you want me to talk to her and see?
Yeah, we spoke earlier, and we talked earlier in the season too.
Okay.
Just numbers. It just has to do with who's available and who's certified.
Not trying to open up a can of worms here. I'm not saying this is a good idea, but I'm just curious because I know other places have swim at your own risk. And I'm curious if we've ever looked into that for swim at your own risk.
For our health department and per our health rules for the beaches in New York State, you technically can't have a designated swimming area without a lifeguard.
So it's a New York State issue.
It is, and it's generally speaking, it's a liability. There's questions about oceanfront and things like that, like you don't put signs all the way down the oceanfront, but we don't have that. You have a controlled body of water, generally speaking, in New York State. You either have no swimming prohibited signage, or you have a lifeguard available to have it open for swimming. That's how it's leaned. Be happy to have a longer conversation about that because there do seem to be some outlying areas. But as far as liability coverage, it's our property, it's our beach. We do have an established beach there unless there's a lifeguard there, they're posted as no swimming.
Okay. So one follow-up question to that then, because people are boating in, getting off their boats and swimming.
Mhm.
While people that can't afford boats are on the shore watching people swim.
Yep.
Do we have liability for those individuals that are swimming from boats?
I mean, you'd have to talk to any of our council about that, but generally speaking, if they come through the park gates and they come across our property, they are our responsibility. People who come in from a boat are not. They want to go to court with that, but that's generally speaking, if they come from our property, they are our responsibility. That's how it's been treated in case law.
I didn't realize that lifeguards could be 16. Have you reached out to perhaps like the schools, like the swim programs, their swim teams to be like, hey, coaches, we have a great summer job opportunity?
They're recruited over the winter
Okay.
and offered to pay for.
So what would like a 16, 17-year-old high school kid, what would their hours be working? Well, I mean, when is?
For a seasonal job, I mean, they could get 40 hours, 50 hours a week if they really wanted to. We
But
use
is
the
the swimming area, could it be open every day or is it just weekends?
Yeah.
Or-
I mean, when we had lifeguards, it was open 7 days a week. From morning until almost close to dusk.
As you would think, like you just said, the swim programs.
Yeah.
You could
Great
find
summer job.
it would be, exactly.
I don't get it.
Lifeguard testing needed.
It's not, but I'm at the high school and I know a lot of those kids on the swim team and they're bright individuals. They could do it.
That first aid.
It used to be you had to fight for that job.
Right.
Yeah.
The state has to harder than they.
Features can be one anybody can.
Teacher says he's willing to break out the speedo.
Don't threaten anybody, would you?
You have anything else
Like, curious.
before we get into these discussions? Have we got anything else for Doug?
Not 1,000.
If not, thanks, Doug. Brian,
I don't have anything to add to my report. If you guys got any questions.
I don't know what you learned at highway school.
You went to training, yeah.
Paperwork every day.
Well, you said useful information, so I'm just curious.
No, there was some good stuff there this year.
Does anybody got any questions for Brian then? Jim?
That training, not do you run into many of the local highway department people from throughout the county.
From the towns,
Yeah, from the towns.
there was 6 town highway superintendents. Sad, because we all used to be there.
How about from District 1, if I can get that specific? Is there any-
Yes. All of them, both of them.
Okay.
Sterling, Ira, Cato, Victory, Dennis. Janelle was there one day. And who was the other gentleman? I'm trying to think of the other one. There's another one that came for a day.
I told you we'd like to send the EW supervisor next year just for.
Yes, villages can go as well. It's a $99 training.
Yeah.
For 3 days.
Very inexpensive.
Dave?
Yeah, and how we coming, Brian, with the motor pool? Is everything working out there?
Motor pool is still in stands. Still do not have a garage manager nor anybody apply for the position.
Still open, huh?
Lydia?
Is the town of Troop highway superintendent here?
So have we had anybody apply? Or just-
We had 2 applicants when it first went out. One of them, Brian snagged. And the other one had taken a job somewhere else before.
Where did Brian snag him?
Go, Brian.
I don't know. I'm sure.
He'd rather shoot a gun than drive a plow.
He's working in our custody division. He's doing a great job.
See that paid better or something?
It's amazing the department heads are now.
Pretty cutthroat.
Keep it to yourself, Brian, and hire somebody.
Well, unfortunately, he must have filled out a sheriff's application as well.
So are we putting it back out there?
Yeah, it's still up and it's out there and I try every day to find somebody, but
It's crazy.
it's, right now we have 5 empty MEO positions as well.
Retirements or move?
Retirements and some of them jumped ship and went to towns and Soil and Water took a couple of them and there's a lot of movement going on.
All right, anybody else for Brian?
Thanks, Brian.
All right, we got 3 resolutions.
Yes, W2 is authorizing us to enter into the snowplow agreements.
Move it, Basile.
Second, Clarko.
Any discussion? Not all in favor?
Aye.
PW3,
PW3 is accepting the additional funds that were added in by the governor's budget this year.
Move it, Basile.
Second, Clarko.
discussion on that? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
PW4,
PW4 is authorizing us to enter into a partnership with the town of Owasco. They hired a forester to go around the entire town and assess their trees. And they're applying for a DEC grant. They need a partner, another municipal partner, which would be us. They're gonna remove some trees off of the roads as well as their own, and that's why we have to enter into the agreement. It's a no cost to us.
can I have a, Wood Hans, give a second.
Second.
Christina, any discussion? This town has hired a forester. I mean, are they actually just trying to get rid of junk trees along roads, or are they gonna actually manage all of their trees?
They're gonna get rid of all basically it's for the ash trees along the right of ways. And in order to get the grant, they had to hire a forester to come in and tell them which ones are.
Cause I'll still harp on the fact that Cayuga County owns a lot of woods that we ought to be doing something with, but we never do, whatever. Cause we got lots of ash trees that are probably falling down, taking other trees down. Anyways, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. Anything more for Brian? Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Move it, Vasile.
Second.
I'm gonna ask if there's any discussion on that. All in favor? Aye.
JPS at 6:15. Don't need to-
Right.
Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, roll call. I have everyone present with the exception of Elaine Daly. She has been excused. Minutes to approve.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. Okay, appointments. I have the entire fire advisory board be appointed, and I believe all that's been, paperwork's been handled.
Do we have to move that or not?
No, I think, aren't they made by the chair?
I believe they have to be appointed. Or I mean, they've been appointed.
Right, the chair is the appointing authority on that, I think.
I'm not sure. It'd have to be illegal.
We usually do that at the full edge.
Okay, so, all right. Move on. That brings us up to the Miss Denise Spengler, 911.
Good evening. You have my report. A couple of things I'd like to touch on are in regards to the staffing. As you can see, we just received the results of the new test. 8 people passed the test.
Out of
9. We had 34 people show up, 34 people sign up for the test. Only 9 people showed up for the test. 8 of those have passed the test. That's the written part. That's not having gone through the performance part or the background checks. And I think that speaks volumes for where we're at with the position. So on here, you'll see that I really want to start working on their salaries this year. We need to be more competitive or we're going to struggle. I did a 5-year plan and we have 5 employees who potentially are going to retire in the next 5 years. And it's really going to hurt us. We have 2 vacancies right now. And we'll, once I get that certified list, we'll go through the process of interviewing and hiring this summer. But we really need to look at the big picture and make sure that we're competitive with our surrounding counties. Or we're not going to fill those positions.
Can I ask a quick question?
Absolutely, sir.
How long is the list good for? Once it's certified?
It's certified until we have a new test.
So it could be up to like 5 years or something?
Usually we do a test generally every year or 2 years, every 2 years.
Okay, wow,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, and I think I may have provided this a couple of months ago, but I did a kind of a trend from 2006 till today. I mean, when I started back in 2006, we probably saw somewhere in the low hundreds of people signing up for the test. And we would end up with a list of, 70-ish, 80. To see 8 people on a list is it's scary. And the dynamics of the job have changed so much. And I think some of it plays into, society. People aren't, they're not looking at the law enforcement or public safety position. So it's really creating, you're going to create some issues. So that's something I really want to start working on this year and looking at where they fall in the contract.
Does each county have their own 911 center?
They do, yep.
Okay, so how do the calls get direct? I mean, how do they know which county a call goes to?
So if it's a landline phone, it's the phone company, so
Yeah.
within the phone company. If it's a cell phone, it's based on where it hit, what tower it hits. So for example, somebody could be in Aurelius and they may, for whatever reason, hit a Seneca tower or they may hit a Cayuga tower. So whichever one they hit, if it's not where they're located, it's passed back to that county.
Okay, so it does transfer.
Yes, yep, it gets passed back. Yeah, and one of the things that was talked about at our 911 coordinators association conference was we're not alone. Every county is in this situation. Everyone's got vacancies, having a hard time filling, seeing low numbers with their tests. I don't want to quote it, but I believe Oswego, and they're, a little bigger than us. I think they had 13 people on their last list, which is it's scary.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Denise, out of the 8 that passed the test, about 50% will actually pass the part that, the next step.
Yeah, if we're lucky. Yeah,
So we're possibly looking at 3 to 4 people.
Yeah. you got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't want to be remiss in saying we're fortunate to have the staff that we do today, because we have some amazing staff. I'm super proud of that. But we can project that we're going to see some retirements coming. And that's certainly going to hurt us. And calls aren't slowing down. We're seeing, we've been extremely busy with large volume incidents. With regards to the communication system, Motorola is doing all their PMs this month, and we've got Penn Power doing the PMs on our generators. And the maintenance team will start doing their PMs probably sometime in early July, and they go through and do, kind of the lower level stuff. They look for, just right down to the nitty gritty of like bees and, weeds around the sites. They look at the minutia, the small things that our vendors don't take care of, and go through and take care of all that. Lights, locks, all of that. And I think that's all I have for you this week.
Anybody else have anything for Denise? Thank you, Denise.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Steve.
Next up, assigned counsel, Mr. Hoskins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You received my report, my committee report. I was able yesterday or the day before, in addition to that report, send you out a draft on the CAP study that was done for 2022. It's pretty comprehensive. I haven't had enough time to digest it all. So I'll be digesting that for the next a couple of weeks in terms of the data that was collected through all the CAP arraignments. The other document that I promised that I would get to the committee is the bail reform and how it impacted Cayuga County. We do have the draft report on that. I wasn't able to upload that yesterday and get that out to you, but I do have that. And those, the University of Albany people that did the report would sometime like to, I haven't digested that either, but if we want to look at bail reform and the impact it had or may not have, as well as the CAP reform, Mr. Chairman, I'd be looking to you to invite them up for an in-person meeting and presentation at some point.
Sure.
I don't know if that's your desire or just seeing the report and digesting the report on our own. I don't know how to interpret it all, so I'd be much more comfortable with having them here too. And whether they take a half hour or 45 minutes going over it, I don't know if that's the desire of the committee or not, but
We'll have to have a chat about that.
I'll put that out there.
Thank you, sir.
Other than that, I just have one resolution tonight,
Have at it, sir.
and that would be
JP1.
JP1.
I'll move JP1 for discussion.
Need a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
What is the data officer?
Hang on. You know what a data officer is?
The data officer, this was approved in our ILS budget, the state budget at 100% funding. It's like a data officer, grant manager, data entry. My deputy coordinator, Diane, I brought her back. So this person is also going to be doing the data off all the vouchers, all the applications. And it's all, ILS doesn't give us $1 million with no strings attached. They need this information fed back to them in terms of know, how many felonies, how many misdemeanors, how many violent felonies, how many violations, all this data that right now we don't have the capacity to collect. So this person paid for by Indigent Legal Services would come in on a part-time basis and start collecting this data.
So are they actually an employee of the county or of this ILS?
They would be an hourly employee. I think they designated $27 an hour.
Mr. Petcher.
I'm looking at the expenses. January 82,000, May 179,000, double the amount.
Very concerning. That represents, we had to go back and retroactively to April 1st on each and every voucher because the new legislation of $158 an hour. So that includes going back to April 1st. But I think you can anticipate that the vouchers in total will be about that every month. Very concerning. And I'm developing a program now where I think for those expenses, you know, we get reimbursed very little, like 25% of the increase. So.
If I could, just cut that out there because I don't think that pertains to the actual resolution that we have before us. So if we could, any more discussion?
I have just another question. So prior to this year, and it was just you and Diane, you know, so we have the addition to your group. What this data analyst, it's just going to be a permanent structure change to your department.
It will be, and I would hope that at some point, the deputy coordinator is putting in, although my position and her position are both part-time, we're putting in on average 30 hours a week. And it should be only 17. So, and then we have John, who's full-time, doing all the assignments, still going to court, a savings, he's doing all the parole, recognizance, verification hearings, which last year was in the range of 18,000, but we're having John do them all now. So that's a savings. So data officer would be a part of the restructure of the office.
And this would be covered by ILS, except for the fact that they're an employee, but they're a part-time employee.
Correct. It was approved in the grant.
I could see supporting this as a part-time person. I could not see. But, I think that as long as ILS is covering the cost and if they increase the, the type of reporting that you need to have done, I can support that.
And the whereas says that salary and fringe is 100% covered by state aid. Okay, any other discussion on JP1, please? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Carried. Mr. Petcher, did your question get answered?
I know.
All right, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, wait, I got one question, please. Because of the raise in the salary for your attorneys, have you had more attorneys apply?
We have had no attorneys apply.
Since have an answer for a reason for that?
I'm not so sure the money is a motivator to join the St.
Good answer.
Council program.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions for assigned counsel?
Thank you.
Hearing none, thank you, Lloyd, very much. Next up, or next on the list would be Dr. Duckett. Don't see him on the computer. I don't see him here, and it does say no updates. Next up, Brittany Antonacci, the district attorney.
She's in the batter's box.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Not many updates. We just had our fifth felony jury trial last week. Got a conviction on that. That was the individual who applied for the director of mental health, filed a false instrument. So he was convicted, and he is currently remanded to the jail. We have another felony trial starting next week. So to give you guys an idea of how that our caseload has increased, up until this year, we have averaged about 2 to 3 felony trials a year. It's June and we'll be doing 6 felony trials. I anticipate doing at least 1 or 2 felony trials every month for the foreseeable future. So, and that's handled by probably about 5 out of 8 of our attorneys right now. So we're busy. And I don't have any resolutions on it, and I'm available for any questions of that.
Anybody have any questions for the district attorney?
Yeah, just a comment. I'd like to congratulate you and your staff on the conviction of the guy that assaulted one of Brian's great deputies.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Any other questions?
Okay.
Sure.
Other than felony or the other things increasing too?
So our grand jury, we usually are able to cancel a day or 2 every term. Every term is about 16 weeks. Every single Wednesday has been packed from about 9:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. So we are indicting a lot more cases, handling a lot more felony cases right now. So.
Anybody else? Thank you.
Thank you.
That's something about society.
Yeah. Next up would be EMO Director, Mr. Riley Shirtley.
Good evening, everyone. I apologize for not having a packet out earlier in the week. Last week, I was out at a conference in Baltimore related to hazardous materials, which we seem to have plenty of these days. Going down just over a few brief highlights. Public Safety Training Center improvements are continuing. We had a kickoff meeting of the next phase, which is expected to take about 16 weeks related to the fire tower yesterday. We went over some design implications, power outlets, similar, and we're going to be looking into getting into more of the meat and potatoes related to the fire tower classroom project. Action planning is already ongoing and has been for a couple months related to the fireworks that will be occurring at Emerson Park. I'm just giving a lot of thanks to the Sheriff's Office, State Police, as well as the Parks Department for their involvement, and then as well as Owasco and Fleming Fire Departments. We're currently working on updating our fire mutual aid plan. It has to be updated every 5 years through the Office of Fire Prevention and Control. And if you aren't aware, the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Ride is scheduled on July 15th for its 15th anniversary running. So you will see involvement from our office as well as local fire departments for traffic control related to that. Continuing the trend with everyone else, we have been busy the last month. We've been out on everything from water rescues to house explosions to you name it. We've been out of our office as well as otherwise. And then training is continuing. We're experiencing kind of a shift. We have 32 people signed up for an exterior firefighting class, which we graduated 8 in the last one. Now we have 32 that started this one just a couple weeks ago. So we're busy. We're continuing to motor back and forth, but we're always available. I've got one resolution on tonight and
Can you send some of them to the 911?
different scope of practice right there. We'll run axes and fire trucks. We're not running computer systems.
Okay, JP2. Go ahead, JP2.
JP2 is authorizing the creation and filling of an Assistant Director of Emergency Medical and Training Services. I'll try and be succinct. In 2012, the position of Deputy Fire and EMS Director was abolished due to budget cuts. At the time, that was only a 0.5 position. We had 4.5 employees in the department, and this is regular year-round actual have hours throughout the year. We currently operate with 3.25. You have myself, my deputy director, my administrative officer, who are all year-round regular employees, and a quarter-time fire coordinator who operates under the title of Deputy Director of Fire and Rescue Services. It's a mouthful. When this position was abolished, we took away several elements of response when it relates to being in the field, but also we put more onto the EMS course sponsor. In order to teach any EMS course within the county, which we do quite regularly, we have to have a course sponsor. We currently have an individual who's been in that role for the better part of the last 10 years, unrelated to the position that was abolished. However, this individual is only compensated for his actual hours in front of the classroom. If he has an intern, if there is the administrative work associated with arranging EMS ride time, ambulance ride time, ER clinical time, based on whatever the state has to offer, changing state guidelines and the meetings associated with them, there's no compensation for that. This creates a lot of strain that ends up falling back on the admin, myself, and the deputy director to try and alleviate that, as well as if the world were to, if the sky were to fall and we were to have a severe MCI or a severe incident, we don't have anybody that's focused predominantly in the EMS range in the event that we needed somebody that minute portion of time. Going forward, if we approve this position, if you choose to approve this position, 40% is roughly the estimated number of hours out of a quarter time that would be compensated through state vouchering for EMS classes. The state pays us to teach EMS classes. Right now, as it sits with our remaining in the budget for the rest of the year, this position is not going to come at a cost to the county. And going forward into next year, 40% of the proposed wage would be coming out of state aid. So again, we're looking for a quarter-time position to alleviate some of the work that has been being done through volunteer efforts, but cannot continue to be done, as well as taking that stress and the added efforts off of the existing regular employees.
Move for discussion.
Okay, I have a motion. Need a second? Okay, got a motion and a second. Up for discussion.
So you're looking for a quarter of a position that the county would pay 60% of that quarter.
A quarter-time position, 10 hours a week.
But 40% of that quarter time position is going to be paid for by the state.
Correct.
So that quarter position is only going to cost us 60% of whatever it would cost.
So I'm asking for about $12,000, looking at about $8,000.
Moving forward.
State budget going, sorry.
That's moving forward, and there's also no, as it's quarter time, I think, probably stating the obvious, but I'll frame it in the form of a question, I guess. So there's no fringe costs associated with this either. So we're just looking at between 8 to 12.
There are no health
moving forward.
benefits. This is just strictly 10 hours a week. Sometimes it'll be, they might be teaching 12 hours this week and the next week it's 8 of office work. It'll obviously ebb and flow based on what's needed. If a course isn't currently ongoing, we have a lot of training equipment and a lot of others that are outdated. Our CPR mannequins are from 1999. That's something that we need to have those efforts trying and work on replacing in order to meet AHA Red Cross standards. That's something that this individual could be in charge of and responsible for in that off time and alleviate that on us to have to go down the hall and go, well, what do you need that needs to be bought? Now we have somebody in the office who's capable of doing that.
Thank you.
Any other discussion on JP 2? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried.
Thank you all.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, Riley, one thing, I just want to thank you for helping me with the fire, the emergency fire situation. Last week, you and Kathleen gave me a lot of information that we really needed to get out to employees. So thank you very much. You provided some masks.
Touching on that, in the event that there were to be another flare up, another incident, we have enough masks now in possession to cover all of the county employees. Again, it was one of those where after COVID, departments were encouraged to purchase their own stockpile in the event there was a biological incident. That was not followed through in every respect. So we gave away what we had available in the office as our personal stash. Now we have enough that we could cover all the number of hundreds of employees that we have.
Thank you again.
Just a question on masks. Do they have an expiration date?
Not necessarily if they stay sealed within the package. There's a 3M expiration date that you could look up on the DEC website, but essentially it's a shelf life. I mean, I would continue to use one that was in a package that was 3 years expired myself.
Okay, just curious.
Yeah. If you wear it every day and run it through the washing machine 2-3 times because it was tucked in your pocket, it's probably going to lose effectiveness after a while, but.
Good question. Well, it's not like the test kits,
The state has a bit into the weeds.
Okay, any other questions for Riley?
Expiration date.
Thanks,
Okay.
Ken Riley.
We have a little flip flop going on here somehow or another. Too much. JPs and or the resolutions got switched in normal order. So I'm gonna go with probation, Mr. D. West Blair. His resolutions are actually numbered after the sheriff. So we'll make do. Go ahead, Jay.
All right, good evening all. You have my report. Won't belabor what's in that too much, of kind of a quick overview. Alternatives to Incarceration Board, next meeting will be late this month, early July, depending on availability. We'll be looking at the 2023-24 ETI plan. I did provide the 2023-2024 DCJS annual plan and aid application, which is probation's annual data package for Division of Criminal Justice Services. That was an attachment. Be happy to answer any questions regarding that. This provides you some insight into what the department does and the numbers that we're pulling. Information about our vehicles. We are still waiting for delivery of the Equinox that was approved through ARPA funding. Last bullet point there that I would like to stress is for future purchases, and we will need vehicles in the future. We have a 2011 Durango right now. Motor Pool has advised me will probably not pass inspection. We were thinking of surplusing that vehicle anyway. We have a 2014 Ford Explorer. They were both surplused from the sheriff's office. They're gonna give us some more life expectancy, but sooner or later, we're gonna need to get those replaced. And we need to replace them with vehicles that are appropriate for modern probation practice. And not to dismiss anybody, but we're not caseworkers, we're not public health, we are law enforcement. We are taking firearms, drugs, other things into custody. We arrest people. We need vehicles that are appropriate for these tasks. And I would encourage, when that need comes around, that we look basically at what the sheriff's office receives, because it's much more appropriate to what we do. I did provide a budget preview. These are not asks for this year's budget. I apologize, but they were sort of intended as a bucket of cold water for what probation is going to need moving forward. Probation is evolving in what we're doing, and it's changing. The budget has not largely changed since I have arrived here. I'll be here 9 years this fall. Our state aid hasn't gone up at all. It's still about 11% of our budget, but our needs have changed, and what the state requests of probation has changed. Our training costs potentially are going to go up substantially. And as the department begins to shift and we begin to face some of the same challenges that Denise was telling you about, we're potentially going to have to send more people farther away for longer training sessions. We used to have a training budget for the entire department of about $2,500 a year. And some years we might have only used half of that. That's going to probably have to change substantially. All of our radios will be coming to the end of their lifespan. If the county replaces all of the portables in use as a pool, I would hope we would be included in that. That may help defray some of those costs, but sooner or later, all 12 of our officers carry a handheld portable plus a couple of spare units that we maintain in the office. They are now substantially more than they used to be. Those costs will need to be budgeted. We're also coming to a cycle where we're going to need to replace a lot more of our body armor. It ages out after about every 5 years. The sheriff's office has been really, really good about working with us and EMO in the past to put us under the grants that are available. Sometimes timing doesn't work out quite so well. Those grants come on very predictable timeframes. If I have 2 or 3 officers that we get hired outside of one of those grant rotations, we're going to have to provide those officers with the equipment in a timely manner. Those are around $1,000 a piece now. So again, just making sure that we're building capability in so that when these officers need equipment, that the funding is going to be there Some years we may spend more than others. Some years we don't transition an officer, we may not buy a single vest. But you're going to be looking at a cycle over the next few years where we're probably going to be replacing 2 to 3 minimum. I did provide some additional information just to kind of illustrate what the department does and how we train to do our jobs. We've partnered for the last 8 years with Cayuga Onondaga BOCES Criminal Justice Program and what's referred to as reality-based training. And this year, the Sheriff's Office and 911 really supported us in that. For the first time, we integrated live use of dispatch and radios on the air for the officers who are participating in this training. This allows them to achieve a newer level or a better level of realism in the training we go through. The criminal justice kids come out for 2 days. They're the bad guys to start off the day. They provide us role players in threat-based scenarios that the officers then have to respond to using all of their equipment and training. We flip that in the morning or later in the morning, and we let the kids become the officers for a little while. We put them through some paces so they get a little bit more of a feeling of what it could be like to be an officer. These hopefully are the next generation of people coming into our professions. So it allows us to have a kind of a training and mentoring role with these kids. Then in the afternoon, we always feed them lunch. We feed them breakfast when they arrive. And they get to stick around for a couple hours in the afternoon and watch kind of the culmination of our training. And that's the officers going through live fire, firearms drills that replicate the reality-based drills that we do in the morning. So it allows the officers to kind of take things up that next level to complete their day. That's kind of a really good thing that we use, and the BOCES kids look forward to it. The juniors hear about it, they get talked to about it, and as seniors that they get to come and participate. All right, last point, staff vacancies. It's very possible. I've had one of my newest hires, one of our best youngest officers I know is interviewed for Onondaga County probation and will likely be leaving. This was not unanticipated. It's not definite yet, but it's likely she's going to be leaving us. We may also be looking at a grant position later in the year that we'll provide more information on later on. And then one thing I just do want to bring to the body's attention, that I am anticipating retiring December 1st of this year. This was something that's only come up in the past month and a half or so. I was anticipating serving for a couple of more years, but I've had an opportunity that I'm really looking forward to. So I'm going to be transitioning the department over the next 5 months and ending my service. I do have 2 resolutions pending. These are standard resolutions every year to authorize continuation of the alternatives to incarceration programs that the Sheriff's Office hosts and benefits from. Cayuga Counseling is our service provider, and the funds that are mentioned in both resolutions are budgeted. I know Lynn was on earlier. If there were any specific questions on the budget or the funding, but these are standard authorizations that we now do every year. The budget period for these programs is July 1st to June 30th. That's why they come in now.
I'll move JPA.
I have a motion on JPA.
Second.
I have a second. Any discussion on JPA? Mr. Peters.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will be abstaining from, we only did 8. I'm abstaining from this one at 9.
All right, but the record reflect Mr. Peters will be abstaining. Any other discussion on JPA? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Carried. AP9.
Over that too.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Carried. Anybody have anything else for Mr. Hugh Westbelair?
I'd like to thank you. First of all, thank you for your service, and sad to see you planning to leave. I hope sounds like more work and not feet in the sand, but thank you for everything you've done. I wanted to say I appreciate the preview that you provided us this evening To, I like the term cold water. That's what we need to know. I do appreciate hearing that on these spring. But I also understand you want to leave the department in a really good place when you go. So, yeah, so I thanks for this, and this is something we need to start to think over.
Mr. Brazil. So, well, thanks, congratulations on leap. Somebody can prove themselves or do something, that's good. My second question was really kind of what you mentioned, but I guess I didn't follow, is this an all for next year, or is this is there and I appreciate getting this now rather than October, November, is this a piece?
This is priming the well. This is letting you know what we're going to need. The vehicle, do we need this next year? No. But eventually we're going to.
Right.
So maybe 2 years from now.
So that was going to be my next question, and I hate to put more work on you with your charging out of here by December 1st, but I was wondering if that could be dated stuff, like how you see it, like, yep, I need that vehicle, it's going to be 2025.
I anticipate.
Unless it's in a crash,
Well, I anticipate when we go into our budget discussions over the next month or two, that I will provide more detail.
Okay.
And that's oftentimes when these things are, are provided.
Yeah. Okay.
But again, just kind of wanted to let everybody know where we're going to be going and what the department is truly going to need. This department, for probably the last 25 to 30 years, has been under-resourced and understaffed. We supervise, I should say, over 600 adult offenders with 12 probation staff total, 12 sworn staff. That's myself, 2 supervisors, and the officers who do the day in, day out work. All right. Our numbers, our caseload numbers are more than Wayne County probation, and they have 25 sworn officers. Our numbers are as high as several other departments in our region that have between 25 and 30 sworn staff, and we do it with 12. So this county's had a bargain for a long time. We're going to be transitioning to a lot of new officers. Burnout is a factor because we've got a very experienced staff. They've been doing it for a long, long time without a lot of complaints, but their workload is real heavy. And if there is an impact to people wanting to come here, it is that people interested in probation in this region understand our staffing and our workloads. And when they look at Onondaga, Tompkins, Ontario, Wayne, Oswego, they look at pay rates, they look at workload. It's not always a favorable comparison.
Anyone else for Mr. D. Westmiller? Thank you, Chair.
Yeah.
Oh, Brian, or, yeah.
All right, I screwed up a name earlier too. So. It's not so much for you, Jay, but for everyone, for you, Ryan, Britt. I mean, we love to do studies, all this stuff. Let's study this to figure out why. We can't find people to work and fill jobs, but yet our criminality, in plain English, is getting out of control, which is one of the main reasons why we can't find people to work in your people's, call it industry. Just so how about we find out why that is rather than keep, who wants to pick the phone up and call their friends in Albany and say, why do you keep pushing this crap on us? I mean, Lloyd tells us about the increases and Brittany tells us about the increases. And then we can't find people to do your job because your jobs, whether you want to admit it or not, people are the ones that are vilified. Not just here in this state, but across the country. So, let's call an apple an apple. I mean, there's a reason why we struggle to fill a lot of these positions.
On the probation side, our caseload looking over the last 10 to 15 years, is lower than it was when I arrived here 8 years ago. But on a longer term view, we're about where we were 15 to 18 years ago. As a percentage of population, the number of people under probation supervision in the state of New York, probation supervision, giving a nod to Mr. Petrus and his part of our profession over there, has remained relatively stable longitudinally for a pretty long period of time. We are seeing more felony offenders, more violent offenders. We are seeing longer probation sentences. Those have played factors. The percentage of our caseload that is specifically related to alcohol driving offenses, DWIs in that, has remained relatively stable. And that's usually fluctuates between 24 and 26% of our caseload, which is substantial. And most of those cases are very high needs and long-term supervisions. They don't get early terminations. There's a lot of violations. There's a lot of field work, checking in on those offenders. So as far as probation is concerned, in the criminal justice system, that part of our profession hasn't changed radically. What has changed for us is the use of technology, the administrative tasks that go along with the jobs, and the need to continue to train and require people to have a higher level of education coming in. Probation is at minimum a 4-year degree position to enter as a trainee, which we don't even hire. We hire officers here. So that's a minimum of a 4-year degree and 2 years related experience or a master's degree. We are one of the only master's degree positions in criminal justice in the state of New York. The problem that then presents to us is if you have somebody who's got student loans, they've got a 4-year degree, and they've now invested 2 years in a career somewhere else, and they look at what they're going to get to start as a PO, it's not competitive. If you have a 4-year degree and 2 years experience and you've already began your work life and you're going to take $52,000 to come in and do this job or less in a lot of counties in our region, we pay well. And I'm not going to, that's being honest. For probation in this region, this county pays well, and that is known. It's a good place to work. But you have to kind of look at the totality of that as well. If you can go to Tompkins and start with more, or Maine, and maybe start at a little less, but in a larger department where there's more mobility and more flexibility, your potential to get promoted is quicker. The caseloads that you will be able to get into, the variety of experiences is broader. You know, I'm truly surprised, and to their credit, the staff here has been very stable for about 12 years. Before that, we lost a lot of people, both to parole and to other probation departments. But for younger people coming in, if they want to look at a small department, Seneca is even smaller than we are and has, you know, the same challenges or worse. You're going to lose people to Ontario, Tompkins, Monroe, Onondaga, you know, the bigger departments where the pay structure is more top heavy. You're going to get better faster as you go up. And at the 3 or 5 year mark, you know, working in smaller departments, I didn't make senior probation officer for 9 years. Now, maybe that says something about me, but in smaller departments, that's the fact of promotions. In a larger department, you've got 100 or more officers. You're going to make senior if you're motivated. If you're a good PO, you're going to make senior in 3 to 5 years. You're going to be a supervisor in 5 to 7, maybe 10 tops when looking at the ranks that go up from there. So those are often the challenges, you know, long response to your question, but that's what we're looking at as far as my profession. And I agree with you broadly in a lot of your other comments. It is a challenging period of time to be in law enforcement.
Okay, anybody else for Jay? Jay, thank you.
Thank you all.
Next up is the sheriff, Brian.
Good evening. You have my report. I wanted to mention a couple of things. The very first item relative to the jail population, we're seeing some challenges relative to many of the things we've talked about tonight, and certainly the district attorney talked about the caseload. We're seeing the reflection of that in the number of people we have in our jail. So I bring that up tonight only because it's going to certainly impact our board-in revenue, because we've had to turn away a number of potential board-ins. So that's going to impact our budget this year. So I wanted to mention that. I also wanted to mention relative to the mental health social worker. I know that Lauren Walsh presented a resolution to your Human Services Committee last week. I certainly support that. We're going to try to, if it's approved, bring a part-timer in to see if 17 hours a week will take care of the mental health needs that we have. We're really struggling trying to meet those needs. So I do support her resolution, and I hope that you'll pass that. And just wanted to mention our school threat assessment team. I know I noted that we had 20 cases that we worked on, a few more than that this year. With this past school year, after starting that at the beginning of the school year, it is an extremely positive initiative that I'm going to be looking to partner with Lauren Walsh on to expand out into the broader community beyond our school districts, but dealing with threatening behaviors and trying to address those before they turn into something bigger. We've had some great success with that, with a few cases that really concerned me. I think I've mentioned that before with kids in our school districts, but if we can prevent violence from happening in our community by working on this initiative, then I'm certainly all for it. And it certainly appears that it is working. So I just wanted to mention that. But as far as my report, that's that. I'm happy to take any questions before we get into resolutions if you have any.
Anything before we get into resolutions with the sheriff? JP3, sir.
JP3 is an authorization to fill a vacant LPN position in the jail. We did have a resignation of a nurse, so we're looking to fill that position.
Move it.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Carried. JP4.
JP4, an authorization to fill 8 vacant sheriff custody officers in the jail. If I could just mention this, I think for some of these positions, this is the third time I've written this resolution, and I've mentioned this before. It creates a lot of work for our department heads to keep having to come back and renew those. I would really like to ask the legislature to consider allowing department heads to fill positions that are budgeted without having to keep coming back and doing that. I know we put an expiration date on them, but if it's not a new position to create, I'd urge the legislature to consider letting us fill those positions if they've been budgeted. I spend a lot of time writing resolutions for those positions. I know the county attorney's office has to review those, but I'd really like to explore, the ability for us to do that and save everybody time.
We've had that discussion. That would make too much sense.
Mr. Chair. Andy, why don't we preach them together?
Yeah, me.
Yes.
If I can, Mr. Chair, I'd like to do 2 things. One, first, I think that would be probably a topic of discussion in government ops.
Yes.
So we'll see if we can't get that on probably a little late for tomorrow, but maybe perhaps not, we can address that.
I would certainly appreciate that, and I'm sure a lot of other.
At least have the discussion. I'm just one person, but
You know, still have it tomorrow. The discussion.
a discussion. Yeah, we can bring it up.
Discussion tomorrow.
And then also I'll move JP4.
Okay,
I'll second JP4.
got a motion and a second on JP4.
Do you have people available, Brian, right now?
So we're just getting into a new list. It's the new pilot program that we were able to participate in to offer the position without giving an actual test. We're just getting into that list. So we do have a list to get into. I can't give you the number of people that are on it. It's not huge, but we do have a new list that we're going to transfer into. We just exhausted.
Is it more than 8?
Yes. Yeah, I think we're in the range of about 15 people or so. It's not a very big list, but at least there's some names on it. So.
Any other discussion on JP4? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. JP5.
JP5, looking for authorization to fill the corrections facility administrator position. That's the facility administrator for the jail. Our administrator left. And I did submit this resolution with a salary range that's listed in the current hiring ban that we have established. I can tell you that I'm guessing that it's going to be difficult to recruit for this position within that range. I will certainly, if you approve it, I will certainly advertise and try to move forward with that, but I'm guessing I'll probably be back before this body looking to try to bump that salary. As the salary stands now, not bargaining salary, it's actually, the top end is actually less than what the person is making that person will be supervising. So it's one of those situations where it's a non-bargaining position that the salary is going to need to be looked at and adjusted, but we'll certainly advertise it at that pay band range and see if we get any interest, but I'm not real confident that will happen at that salary.
Perhaps the DA can prosecute the next applicant as well.
I hope not. Let's hope not.
Move AP 5.
I have a motion. I need a second.
Aren't you allowed to be whatever you want to be?
I can go second.
Thank you. I have, any discussion on JP 5? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carry. JP 6?
Actually, JP 6 and JP 7 are routine resolutions to accept grant funding that we accept each year.
I'd
Move them as a bundle.
I would take the motion and the second as a bundle. Any discussion on the bundle of JP 6 and 7? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. Any other comments or questions for the sheriff? Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
I will accept the need a second. Got the first one and the second one. Let's. Favor, yes. Done.
Hey, Sheriff.